Hello, my dear friends. There is a strange feeling moving through the collective right now, and many can sense it even if they cannot explain it. For a while, it seemed as though humanity was slowly waking up. More people began questioning old systems. More people started turning inward. More people began realizing that the life they had been trained to accept did not fully reflect the truth of who they are. It was not a loud awakening at first. It did not arrive with fireworks or dramatic announcements. It appeared quietly through discomfort, disillusionment, exhaustion, and a deep sense that something in the world no longer matched something in the soul. For many, this awakening has felt like a sacred unraveling. Illusions have been cracking. Old identities have been falling away. The need for external validation has weakened. The hunger for truth has become stronger than the desire for comfort. Even those who never spoke the language of spirituality began sensing that the world was shifting in ways they could not fully measure with logic alone. Something old has been ending. Something deeper has been calling. But now there is another message emerging, and it is not a message of fear. It is a message of soberness, clarity, and spiritual maturity. The awakening trend that many have been celebrating is approaching a pressure point. A major event, or a sequence of events, may cause many people to pull back from their inner knowing and rush back into fear, distraction, division, confusion, and emotional survival. What looked like awakening may, for a moment, appear to reverse. What seemed like forward movement may suddenly look like retreat. What felt like truth rising may be buried beneath noise, panic, and manipulation. This does not mean the light is losing. It does not mean the awakening was false. It does not mean humanity is doomed. It means a test is approaching, and every genuine awakening is tested. This is where many souls misunderstand the path. They imagine awakening as a straight line upward. They imagine that once truth is seen, it can never be forgotten. They imagine that once the heart opens, it will stay open without effort. But that is not how transformation works. Real awakening is not proven in moments of peace. It is revealed in moments of pressure. It is measured by what remains true within you when the world around you becomes unstable again. According to this perspective, the next phase is not simply about receiving more light. It is about learning how to hold light when shadows intensify around you. Archangel Michael, in the spiritual tradition many resonate with, is often associated with strength, discernment, and spiritual protection. Not the kind of protection that removes every difficulty, but the kind that helps the soul remain aligned when it is surrounded by distortion. And this message carries that tone. It is not a message telling you to run from the world. It is a message asking whether your center is real, or whether it only existed while conditions felt safe. Because when a major event moves through the collective, many hidden things surface all at once. When uncertainty rises, the nervous system reacts. When the future feels unclear, the ego searches for control. When chaos increases, people become more vulnerable to narratives that promise safety, certainty, enemies, and quick solutions. In those moments, even people who once spoke beautifully about consciousness can become reactive, rigid, and deeply afraid. They may abandon their compassion. They may turn on each other. They may cling to external saviors. They may confuse intensity with truth. They may mistake fear for wisdom. That is how awakening appears to reverse. Not because truth has disappeared, but because pressure exposes what was never fully integrated. There is a difference between being interested in awakening and being anchored in awakening. There is a difference between consuming spiritual language and embodying spiritual depth. There is a difference between talking about higher consciousness and remaining conscious when everything around you is provoking your lower instincts. This is the threshold humanity is moving toward. Many have built an identity around being awake. Many have come to see themselves as separate from the sleeping world. Many have become attached to the role of the one who sees more, knows more, and understands more. But the soul is not interested in spiritual ego. The soul is interested in truth. And truth will always dismantle whatever is false, even if that falsehood has been dressed in spiritual words. So the question is not simply, what major event is coming? The deeper question is, what in me can be shaken by any event? If your peace depends entirely on the outer world behaving the way you want, then your peace is fragile. If your clarity depends on a steady flow of reassuring signs, then your clarity is conditional. If your faith only survives while life feels mystical, pleasant, and meaningful, then your faith has not yet been rooted in something eternal. The coming test, in this perspective, is not only collective, it is personal. Every person will be shown the places where they are still easily manipulated by fear. Every person will be shown the places where they still hand away their power. Every person will be shown what they worship when pressure rises. Some worship control. Some worship approval. Some worship certainty. Some worship conflict. Some worship being right. Some worship escape. And many do not realize this until life touches the exact wound that reveals it. The spiritual path is beautiful, but it is also honest. It does not flatter the ego. It does not protect every illusion. It does not guarantee that once you have learned a few higher truths, you are beyond regression. In fact, one of the deepest lessons on the path is that regression itself can become a teacher. When something in you falls back into fear, the purpose is not to shame yourself. The purpose is to see clearly what still needs compassion, grounding, and inner mastery. Humanity may soon witness a powerful mirror. A major event does not have to mean one dramatic public moment alone. It can also mean a convergence of emotional, social, energetic, and psychological pressure that hits the collective at the same time. It can mean a shift that intensifies uncertainty and amplifies hidden instability. It can mean that people who thought they were ready discover they still have work to do. It can mean that latent fractures in the human psyche suddenly become visible everywhere. Some will interpret this as a failure of the awakening. It is not. It is the exposure stage. Before deeper integrity can emerge, false strength must be revealed. Before stable compassion can arise, conditional compassion must collapse. Before inner authority can mature, dependency on outer authority must be seen. Before spiritual sovereignty becomes real, performance spirituality must be stripped away. This is why moments of apparent reversal are not always what they seem. Sometimes the surface gets darker because the hidden is rising to be clear. Sometimes the world looks more divided because unspoken tensions are no longer staying buried. Sometimes the soul feels more challenged because it is being invited to activate deeper capacities that comfort never required. There is a pattern in human history and in personal transformation alike. Before a breakthrough, confusion often increases. Before a new level of order, disorder becomes more visible. Before authentic faith stabilizes, old forms of false certainty begin to crumble. Many people assume this means things are getting worse. In a limited sense, yes, the experience may feel heavier, but another interpretation is possible. What is unstable is being revealed precisely because it cannot go with humanity into a more conscious future. The difficulty comes when people see the revelation and mistake it for the final destination. They think the collapse is the truth, when in fact it is only the unveiling. They think the panic is the path, when in fact it is only the reaction to the path. They think the pressure is punishment, when in fact it may be initiation. This message invites a different response. Do not worship the storm. Do not fear the storm. Learn from the storm. If the collective begins to wobble, your task is not to become cold, is not to become superior. It is not to say, I knew this would happen, and harden your heart. Your task is to deepen your steadiness, to observe without absorbing every wave of hysteria, to care without collapsing, to remain open without becoming naïve, to become discerning without becoming bitter. That is spiritual adulthood. And perhaps that is what this next phase is truly demanding. For too long, many have looked for awakening as a spectacle. They have searched for signs, timelines, symbols, prophecies, dramatic shifts in energy, and massive turning points that would finally prove that the world is changing. But the real evidence of awakening is not how dramatic the signs become. It is how human beings behave when pressure increases. Do they become crueler or kinder? Do they become more manipulable or more inwardly clear? Do they become addicted to fear or committed to love? Do they become dependent on external narratives or rooted in lived discernment? Do they use uncertainty as an excuse to abandon their values or as a reason to embody them more deeply? These are the questions that matter now. The danger is not only in outer events. The danger is in inner abandonment. When people lose contact with their center, they become highly suggestible. They begin to seek someone else to tell them what is real, who is guilty, what to fear, and how to think. Their intuition becomes drowned out by repetition, noise, urgency, and emotional contagion. This is why grounding is no longer optional. Inner stillness is no longer just a poetic ideal. It is becoming a form of spiritual intelligence. If you cannot sit with uncertainty, you will be controlled by whoever claims certainty the loudest. If you cannot regulate fear, you will mistake intensity for truth. If you cannot remain present when challenged, you will hand your consciousness over to reaction. This is why the message, though serious, is ultimately empowering. It is reminding you that your soul was not designed only for easy days. It was designed to carry light consciously, not sentimentally, not performatively, consciously. That means your practice must become real. If compassion is real, it must survive frustration. If discernment is real, it must survive confusion. If faith is real, it must survive silence. If love is real, it must survive disappointment. If awakening is real, it must survive pressure. The next chapter may expose how much of the modern spiritual movement has been built on stimulation rather than transformation. Many have become attached to being inspired, but not disciplined. Many love the language of ascension, but resist the humility of self-observation. Many love the promise of collective evolution, but avoid the responsibility of emotional maturity. When conditions become difficult, these imbalances are no longer easy to hide. This is not a condemnation. It is an invitation. You are not being asked to be perfect. You are being asked to be honest. Where are you still easily triggered? Where do you still become unstable when life does not validate your spiritual expectations? Where do you still use higher perspective to avoid grief, anger, accountability, or human tenderness? Where do you still seek certainty because trust has not yet matured within you? These questions are sacred. They are not attacks. They are portals. The soul grows wherever honesty enters. And perhaps that is why Archangel Michael's symbolism matters so much in moments like these. This archetype represents the cutting away of illusion. The sword of truth is not merely a weapon against darkness outside. It is a symbol of discernment within. It is the willingness to separate essence from distortion, truth from noise, courage from reactivity, and spiritual clarity from fantasy. The major event, then, is not only external. It is the encounter between your soul and everything in you that still trembles before uncertainty. Some will cling tighter to old systems. Some will rush into louder distractions. Some will become more extreme in their thinking. Some will choose numbness. Some will choose blame. Some will choose despair. But some will do something different. Some will slow down. Some will breathe. Some will remember. Some will refuse to surrender their humanity to pressure. Some will become quieter, clearer, kinder, and stronger all at once. These are the ones who will hold the bridge. Not because they have all the answers, but because they have learned not to betray their deepest values when answers are missing. Not because they control the future, but because they refuse to let fear define their character. Not because they are untouched by the collective atmosphere, but because they have trained themselves to return to center again and again. That return is everything. You do not need to be in a constant state of spiritual elevation. You need to know how to return. You do not need to never feel fear. You need to know how to meet fear without becoming its servant. You do not need to predict the future. You need to know how to remain inwardly aligned as the future unfolds. This is what many are learning now. And for those who feel exhausted, this message also brings compassion. The fatigue you feel may not mean you are failing. It may mean you have been sensing more than you have language for. Many sensitive people have been carrying collective tension in their bodies, emotions, and nervous systems. They feel the density in the world. They feel the instability in the atmosphere. They feel the pressure before others name it. This can create confusion, heaviness, and even spiritual discouragement. So let this be remembered. Sensitivity is not weakness, but sensitivity without grounding can become overwhelmed. You are being called not just to feel, but to stabilize what you feel. Protect your attention. Protect your inner climate. Protect your relationship to silence. Protect your ability to think slowly and feel deeply at the same time. Do not give your mind away to every wave of noise. Do not let the collective emotional field decide your inner state hour by hour. Step back when needed. Breathe before reacting. Notice what in you is being pulled. Notice which thoughts are yours and which are echoes of fear moving through the atmosphere. This level of awareness is not passive. It is powerful. It breaks the spell of automaticity. It interrupts inherited patterns. It reclaims consciousness from mass emotional momentum. And this may be one of the greatest forms of service during uncertain times, not escalating distortion. There will always be voices trying to intensify panic, outrage, collapse, and division. There will always be forces that profit from confusion. But you do not have to become a carrier of that energy. You can become a stabilizing presence instead. What does that look like? It looks like speaking carefully rather than impulsively. It looks like refusing to dehumanize people even when you disagree. It looks like not confusing spiritual passion with emotional volatility. It looks like checking your assumptions before spreading them. It looks like choosing integrity over performance. It looks like letting compassion and discernment stand together. This is how awakening survives its own test, not by becoming louder than fear, but by becoming deeper than fear. The soul does not need theatrics to be powerful. It needs coherence. It needs alignment. It needs truth practiced in quiet ways, repeated consistently. A person who can remain humane under pressure carries more spiritual authority than 1,000 dramatic declarations. So if the awakening trend seems to reverse, remember this: appearances are not the whole story. Sometimes a retreat exposes the weak foundation. Sometimes confusion reveals what was borrowed rather than embodied. Sometimes collective instability forces individual depth. Sometimes what looks like loss is actually purification. And sometimes the greatest act of light is not dazzling revelation, but faithful steadiness. This is not the time to abandon your path because the atmosphere changes. This is the time to refine your path. Return to simple truths. Return to honesty. Return to the body. Return to prayer, stillness, reflection, breath, grounded action, and compassionate discernment. Return to what makes you less easy to manipulate and more able to love. If there is a major event, let it reveal your depth. not your fragility. Let it show you where more healing is needed, not convince you that all healing was fake. Let it strip away spiritual vanity and strengthen spiritual sincerity. Let it humble you, clarify you, and anchor you. Because the future does not only depend on what happens around humanity, it also depends on what awakens within humanity when pressure rises. That is the real turning point. Not the event itself, but the consciousness that meets it. And perhaps this is the message beneath the warning. Not that humanity is about to lose all progress, but that humanity is being given a profound choice: to regress into fear or to deepen into wisdom, to become reactive or to become real, to collapse into outer chaos or to build inner order, to seek enemies or to seek understanding, to hand away power or to embody responsibility. Every soul will feel this choice in its own way, and every choice made in small moments will matter more than people realize. The tone of a conversation will matter. The story you repeat to yourself will matter. The level of fear you entertain will matter. The amount of honesty you allow will matter. The degree to which you stay connected to compassion will matter. The world is shaped not only by grand public events, but by millions of subtle inner decisions. By what people choose to amplify, by what they choose to embody, by what they choose to become under pressure. So no, this is not merely a message about danger. It is a message about responsibility. It is a message about depth. It is a message about learning that awakening is not a trend, not a label, not a mood, and not a temporary fascination with spiritual ideas. Awakening is the slow, sacred, often uncomfortable work of becoming more truthful, more grounded, more loving, and less easily ruled by fear. If a major event is indeed approaching, then let it find you practicing that. Let it find you less attached to panic. Let it find you less dependent on being reassured. Let it find you more committed to inner order than outer drama. Let it find you willing to stand in uncertainty without abandoning your soul. And let it find you remembering that divine guidance is not always loud. Sometimes it is a quiet correction. Sometimes it is a deep inner knowing that says, do not harden, do not rush, do not worship fear, do not betray your center. Stand still, see clearly, choose well. This may be the hidden strength of this whole message. It does not ask you to become obsessed with what might happen. It asks you to become conscious of how you will meet whatever happens. That is where your freedom lives. That is where your power returns. That is where awakening becomes more than an idea and turns into lived reality. So as the world moves through uncertainty, and as collective energies rise and fall, and as the pressure of the times reveals what is stable and what is fragile, remember this: you are not here merely to predict the shift. You are here to embody the response. You are here to become the kind of presence that cannot be easily pulled away from truth. You are here to grow into a heart that does not lose its compassion when challenged. You are here to become inwardly sovereign enough that noise cannot fully command your soul. And if humanity truly stands before a threshold, then this is not the moment to panic. This is the moment to become real. Because the truest awakening was never about escaping the human experience. It was about sanctifying it, not avoiding the test, but meeting it consciously, not demanding guaranteed outcomes, but embodying timeless values, not waiting for the world to become peaceful before becoming peaceful within. And that may be the deepest reversal of all. That what appears to threaten awakening may actually separate superficial awakening from the real thing. What falls away was never stable. What remains will matter. What deepens now will carry light into the next chapter. So breathe, observe, discern, refuse unnecessary fear, strengthen your center, and walk forward with humility, courage, and compassion. Because no outer event, however large, can fully reverse a soul that has chosen truth more deeply than comfort. And perhaps that is the real message now. Not that the awakening is ending, but that it is being asked to grow up.